Hey guys, it is Kevin again, and
after 1,000 years.
Yes, finally we are here to review the episode that just aired of The Mandalorian a couple days ago, right? It's only been a few days, right?
Oh, it's been a few days, not like it's been 2 weeks.
Yeah, no. It's only been, it aired yesterday. But in all seriousness, guys, we are here to review the finale of The Mandalorian. But before we do, I want to explain why it has taken us so long to get this out and other videos that I'm supposed to do. So, as you guys know, when this episode aired, I was staying over at Auburn Wanderer's house in Massachusetts and things like that. And the initial plan was for him to finish out the season so he could review it with us. But he's like, you know what? I'm not going to be able to do that. Just do it without me. So I figured I'd do it when I get back. However, because I'm stupid, my dumbass forgot to leave. I left like my bag of all these like electronics that also happen to have my webcam in it. So we were not able to record this video until I had gotten it back. And thankfully now I finally do have it back. Thankfully we don't have it. And then, you know, we were going to do it yesterday, but Double Nine had to watch his Raw, I guess, because, you know, that's the most important thing in the world. That's more important.
Okay, look, I forgot that we were doing it. It was the first Monday Night Raw of the whole year, of the whole decade, so I had to watch it. I will be. It's the person that left his webcam, so shut up.
Well, you know what? I got it back now. So the point is, guys, all is fine now, and we will be back to. I should be back at least to the regular schedule by, I would say, at the latest Thursday. By Thursday, I should be able to get everything up that I need to. I still have part 2 of the catch-up review that I need to do, which, guys, please just try to ignore the audio in the first half of that video. I know the other webcam I had just wasn't really that great, but just try to bear with it. And then I still have to get 2 other 2019 movie reviews up. And then I got to review Just Mercy 1917. And then I will have my best list up by then. My worst list will probably be going up tomorrow. But with that out of the way, let's just get into the review.
Don't change the channel. Don't touch that dial. We got it all on UHF. Kick out the sneakers.
Hey guys, it's Kevin again, and we are here to finally review the season finale of The Mandalorian. Of course, being season 1, episode 8, Redemption. And you know, before, like I said, in the intro, I explained why it's taken us so long to get this review done. But finally, we are here to review this episode. And with me for one last time for this video is the man that has apparently the worst lighting in the entire world. Here he is, FilmFan0599.
Yes, of the worst lighting known to man, even though my last place had worse lighting, but still.
Terrible.
Hey, what's up, you guys? FilmFan0599, and I'm back here for the final review of The Mandalorian for Season 1. And yeah, this episode 8 is entitled The Redemption, and I'm excited to talk about this finale, because this finale was quite taquito, if I must say.
Yes. So we'll just get into it right now. So obviously, we were both very excited after the cliffhanger in the last episode, which to me was this show's finest hour up till this point. You know, I thought that they did a really great job with reintroducing us to everything, really making it feel like the whole show's been building up to this one event that took place. And we got to the finale, and I have to say, unlike another Star Wars property, this actually delivered in the ways that we were hoping. I fucking loved this finale. This is easily my favorite episode, I think, of the entire show. This is easily the most well-written one, and just in general, makes me feel really good going into the second season. I think moving forward, we have an idea of where we're going. I think there is definitely a good path for what this show is going to be moving forward, and I think they did a very good job with that in this episode. But before we get into it, your quick thoughts on this episode overall.
I agree 100%. This was, in my opinion, the best episode of the whole show.
Oh, yeah.
It was everything that I think a season finale is supposed to deliver.
Yes.
And I think it delivered on all cylinders. I absolutely loved pretty much every aspect of this finale. It satisfied me in the way that I wanted it to, because there were some things I was excited for, but nervous for going into. But even those things I was nervous about, it it did fix those, and it did like fuck, what would be the word for it? Shit, sorry. But no, there were some things I was nervous about, but luckily those things I was nervous about were swiped under the rug very quickly. And you know, I just love this episode. I think it's by far the best episode we've had of the show so far, and it's the best episode of season 1, in my opinion.
Yes, definitely. So with that out of the way, we're just going to get into this episode overall, which there really is a lot to talk about here because
there's a lot to pack
really
in.
Go down in this episode. I think the first thing to really get into is the history between Mando and Moff Gideon, because we had this character Moff Gideon introduced in episode 7. I was really worried that because this has been the recurring theme of the show, that he was just going to be like a one-and-done villain. I thought we were going to be done with him by this episode, and thankfully, that's not the case at all. We have only seen the beginning of this character. Like,
yeah, that was the thing I was worried about the most going into this episode, but luckily, no, this is only the beginning. And
it's similar to Gus in Breaking Bad, where we only have seen we've only seen the beginning of this character's terror. And so we get this reveal very early on in the episode that Mando actually has this deeper connection to Moff Gideon. He was apparently involved in the destruction of like when the Empire took over and things like that. And because of that, you can see this very big sort of rivalry between them, and it makes this conflict that much more engrossing. We finally get to see, after all these episodes, what actually happened to Mando's family. You know, we've seen glimpses of it here and there, but we really got to see the full extent of what he's been through. And it's pretty devastating to watch. I mean, all the stuff that we find out where, he's been an officer of like the Empire's secret police, and that he's been responsible for the destruction of Mandalore. And when the Mandalorians, came to take him in, you realize that Moff Gideon's been behind a lot of that. It just adds this extra weight to everything we've been seeing. It adds this extra bit of intrigue to this story. And it's one that I really do want to get more into, because it shows the Moff Gideon, he's not just going to be some villain. Like, no, he has a much larger purpose in this story. And I think this revelation especially really helped confirm that, like, there's a lot more to this guy than we're thinking. And I already am really loving what we're getting with him. But what did you think of that whole revelation in this episode overall?
Oh, I thought it was great. I really enjoyed seeing that. I was hoping maybe there would be some sort of connection between the two. I'm glad that there was.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't kind of just like, oh, he just wants a child, all this, all that. I was hoping there was something more there.
Which, to be fair, we still don't know why he wants the child. Like, we still don't know what that's
about.
I mean, as the stormtroopers say in the beginning of the episode, he could just want to eat the child for all we know.
Yeah, so I was hoping we would get more, and we did. And I liked seeing that. I liked that there was a history between Mando and Moff Gideon, and I think they did a really great job with that. I like seeing that flashback where, we saw the Empire like take over and whatever. I actually really enjoyed all that stuff. Yeah, for sure. And I thought that was the way it was handled was actually really good.
Yeah, and it's really the first episode, I'd say, that relies heavily on Star Wars mythology, the rise of the Empire and all that kind of stuff. We're seeing how this really affected a different character, a character that wasn't relevant in the saga, but was around when these events were going on. I think the show's doing a really great job with the things that happened in the Skywalker saga. They happened, but it affected this character differently than it has the other characters we've come to know. And I think, again, I've said this before, moving forward, this is more of what they need to be doing. They need to find ways to keep expanding the universe, but also tell different stories. And I think the show has done such an excellent job with that. And this is a very good example. But the other big thing that we have to talk about, that I know you have a lot to say for sure, is that finally, after all these episodes of people complaining, we haven't seen his face. Why haven't we seen his face? Why is this character so emotionless? We haven't seen his face. Well, we finally, in one moment, get to see his face, and oh my God, it was such a brilliant moment. And I love the way it was done. It wasn't even a showy reveal. It was something where he didn't want to do it, and he felt like it was against his code to do so. But because IG wasn't human and wasn't, you know, someone that he pledged his allegiance to, never showing his face to, he finally felt like he had a reason to do it. And oh my God, I love that moment. Even though it was very brief, it was just great to see that after all these episodes, we finally get to see the man behind this mask. It's kind of him finally opening up to someone, because we've seen him open up gradually throughout the show, but I think this is really his first big moment in fully opening up to someone and fully being able to show himself in all his glory, all his vulnerability. You know, all of his emotion is finally on display here, something that we haven't seen in the show, and I think it's just such a phenomenal moment in that way. I love the way that was done.
Oh, same. It was just so, it was so great. Like, I loved how it was done, you know, where he's like, you know, I pledged, you know, to never show my face. He's like, I'm not, you know, I'm not human. You can trust me. And he like takes off the mask and we see like this battered face and shit. It was great. Like, I loved how it was done. You know, it was the perfect way to show his face. I think a moment like this was probably the perfect way to show his face. I think they did a really good job with it. I honestly, like, if for someone that never like looked up who the actor was for the show and whatever, I wonder what the reaction was when they actually get to see his face. I kind of do wonder that. So it was a great moment. I really loved it a lot. It was definitely it was really satisfying to see. Honestly, it really was. You know, and I thought the way that they handled it was great.
Yeah, and it got to shut up Twitter as well, so that's always a bonus.
yeah, that's always a great sign.
Yes, that's always a bonus as well. But the other big thing I want to talk about is that something I think they did an excellent job with in the last episode, as I said, is that they found a way to flesh out these characters and make them just as interesting as Mando. They did that with Grief Karga in episode 7. And I think we can collectively agree that while Mandalorian and both Baby Yoda had some amazing moments, the star of this episode was IG-11. He absolutely...
Oh, yeah, for sure. I agree, hands down.
In this episode, I thought that he... And look, you can say, oh, well, that's only because Taika Waititi was at the helm. Well, you know what? I don't really care, because this was the time for this character to shine in that way. And I love the fact that he finally got more to do, because honestly, I didn't like that he was taken out so early in episode 1. At the time, yes, I get context-wise it made sense, but I love Taika Waititi. I think he's such a great character actor, and I love that he got to do something more here. He got to bring something else to this character, and I really love what we got to see here, and just his whole transition from this, you know, this droid that is supposed to be made for only one thing, and that's to kill, you know, kill this species and kill, you know, Baby Yoda and things like that because he's too powerful. And then seeing him in transition into someone that's supposed to protect him and someone that he's kind of like a bait.
That scene where those bastards of stormtroopers, they're lucky I don't wreck their necks. But
oh man, what are they doing to your son?
Dude, when he came in and he just starts blasting everybody, dude, it was amazing.
But
like,
even better is the moment where he sacrifices himself, and they're like, "ID, what are you doing?" And he's like, you know, I cannot be protected, but you know, I cannot be killed. My programming will not let me. You know, you cannot shoot me. And then he just like you know, he steps in the lava, and then the whole explosion happens, decimates all of these stormtroopers. Such a glorious moment. I love the way all of that was done, and I think it's safe to say after this episode, IG-11 is definitely one of the best characters of the show for sure.
Oh, I would even argue probably of the whole universe. Honestly, yeah. I think he was, the way that his character was handled in this episode specifically was really fantastic and made me really feel a lot, honestly, because it's like you said, he went from being this droid that was supposed to hunt and kill to now trying to protect people and now having to make the ultimate sacrifice. And I think the redemption part of that, you know, I think there's a big reason behind why this episode is called Redemption.
It's really for IG, yeah.
Exactly, and that's the big reason for that. And I think they did a fantastic job with that. Honestly, that was probably my favorite thing about this episode.
Yeah, definitely, because because even in the beginning, like Mando's still very wary about him. Like when Queel is dead, he's like, "Did you have something to do with this?" Like he does not trust this guy until he has that moment, until basically he ends up healing him and things like that, and he helps him recover from those injuries that he sustained. That's when you see Mando finally learn to trust him, and it's not just only a great arc for Mando, who's someone that we know had such a heart, so many trust issues and things like that, and seeing him finally being able to trust someone and gain this family. I think, like you said, the redemption really was for IG in that way, and I really love what they did there. And something else that I think, something interesting that I know you just brought up is that you think he's one of the best characters of the whole show, and I would absolutely, the whole universe, and I would definitely agree, because the other droids that we've seen, like C-3PO, R2-D2, they don't really have these big, like, character arcs. They're more just comedic relief. And this is far closer to, like, what everyone was wanting, like, C-3PO to have in Rise of Skywalker. Like, don't treat it as a joke. Treat it as an actual character arc. And that's what they did for IG here. And it was just such an amazing moment. I love what they did there.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
Yeah, that was really great to see. So aside from that, there's a lot of other really great moments in this episode. I mean,
do the magic hand thing. Baby, do the magic hand thing.
Yes, the magic hand thing. I love the way that was done. I thought that was absolutely fantastic. I love the moment where, you know, all of these stormtroopers are coming in, and it seems like it's the end. It seems like our heroes are not going to be able to get through this. And then here comes Baby Yoda saving the day. And I think that what they're doing an excellent job with here, and something that they very much set up in this episode, is that I think season 2 is going to be a lot more of Baby Yoda's origins. Where does he come from? Are there more like him? You know, how did he get these powers? These are things that we've never known. Like, we've known who Yoda is.
Yeah, we don't know much about where Yoda comes from and where his species come from. We've never really learned much of that in the Star Wars realm. So I'm glad that as a possibility for season 2, we're going to get more deeply into that.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like it helps us flesh out a part of the universe that we actually haven't seen. It's kind of crazy to think about. Like, this is a character that's been around for so long, but we don't know much about his origins. And I think the idea of making that the sole focus of season 2 is a really good one. And I really like where they are heading with that, because that's something people have wanted to know for years. And look, you can always say, you know, some things you should just, as the leftovers would say, let the mystery be. Always got to throw that in there. But, you know, there are some things that I think that they should reveal. And this is one of those things where I'm very excited to get more into that. And especially seeing Mando want to know about that. He doesn't want to go back to the Glades. He doesn't want to go back with Karga. No, he feels that it is his duty to continue, you know, staying with Baby Yoda and learning more about him. And I really loved the way that was done. And again, just such a great arc for Mando. Even though it's the first season, I think he has had a fully realized character arc, and he really is a different person compared to who he was in the beginning of this season. I think they've done an excellent job with that here.
Yeah, I agree. And it's going to be very interesting to see where that plays into season 2 now, how he is a much different person than he was, say, at the beginning of this season to where he is now. So I am very interested to see where he goes into season 2 and what he does to help out Baby Yoda even more so than before. Because what happens at the end of the episode...
You know what? We just got to get into it. You know what? You're already talking about. Why don't you just get into what ends up happening?
Dude, okay, so at the end of it, you know, Grief Karga, his ship gets taken down by, you know, Mando. You know, he takes it down with like this insane grappling hook and whatever. It was crazy. So we think he's dead.
Moff Gideon.
Yeah, what?
You said Grief Karga. It's Moff.
I meant to say.
Yes, he just betrays Grief Karga at the last second for no reason.
I meant to say Moff Gideon. Thank you.
That'd be a great moment if he just like completely negated everything that we saw in the past few episodes with him being able to.
Grief Karga. Yeah, that's the alternate ending to this episode. Yeah, just Grief Karga just says fuck it and just.
He's like, you know what? I'm not going back to the Glades because you're not going to be there either, and he just takes him down. And that's that.
But no, my apologies, Moff Gideon. We think he's
an idiot.
Dead. but not really. We see him pull out the dark saber. The dark saber. He pulls out the dark saber. Oh my god! I was like, dude, like, because I don't know if you know much about the dark saber.
I don't.
But if you have watched the Clone Wars, then you know that's a pretty sweet ass weapon. And the fact that they're bringing it into live action now, okay, let's go. I'm excited. I'm excited to see where this is going. I cannot wait.
For a Star Wars show, it's been relatively light on lightsabers. There have not been as many in this show, so I like that we finally have like a major like incorporation of lightsabers in there as well.
Like it's just gonna be insane. I can't wait to see what type of damage he's gonna do with that shit. I'm excited. Oh man,
yeah, definitely. And the best thing about that, you know, definitely, I think, is that all these characters are still around, minus IG, obviously. Greef Karga is still there. Cara Dune is still there. You know, other characters like the Armorer is still there. So I think they've set it up where we still have these guys to help out Mando whenever he needs them. And
there possibly could be more characters down the road. Yeah. So who knows what the possibilities are for this next season, honestly.
Yeah,
and
I like where they're heading with this storytelling, where it's not just he's on a different adventure. He really is creating a family of his own, and you really do get to see that. I think no better scene illustrates that than when they're burying Queel in that final scene, and you know, he has people that want him to come back, and not because it's his code, but because they generally care for him. You have Cara wanting to stay, even though there's some things she's a little bit wary about. She wants to stay because she cares about Mando. She likes working with him. She likes the bond that they're forming. You have Greef Karga and him being accepting of it all. He's not being demanding. He's not, you know, he's still very suave and charismatic and things like that. Like he's been all season. But he is more accepting of what's going on. It's a really great moment to see for a character that has had so many people betray him. It's a really great place to leave things off. But it also makes me increasingly worried because we now know Moff Gideon is out for blood. And
dude, like it's just, oh man, like I'm so excited about this. Like I need season 2. Like, yeah. I just need to know where this is going.
Thank God it was renewed. Jesus Christ. Because, like, if it wasn't, I don't know what we do.
But, dude, oh, man, like, this was perfect. This honestly was. Like, I genuinely think this was the perfect way to end off this season and leave you. Because, like I said, what season finale should do is wrap up what's going on in the entire season, but also leave room for what's going to happen next. And that's exactly what this does in the perfect way.
Yeah, I think they did an excellent job with that as well. Getting into the directing here. What happened?
Sorry, just my brother was saying dinner was done. Okay.
Getting into the directing here, though, from Taika Waititi, I mean, we already know that he is excellent when it comes to directing, but I think we really got to see how great he is when it comes to the Star Wars universe. I mean, we've never seen Taika Waititi direct something Star Wars related before, but he fit right in. He totally understands the lore, the mythology, all that kind of stuff, but he does a great job still incorporating that witty sense of humor. That opening scene with the 2 stormtroopers, I fucking love that. A lot of people were like knocking on that scene, and I loved it. You got to see 2 stormtroopers who were very just annoyed and not really knowing what's going on, and them kind of being afraid of like Moff Gideon and things like that. And Jason Sudeikis just had me absolutely dying. I love the way that whole scene was done, and stuff like that I thought was great. But then you also have those great emotional moments in there, like IG sacrificing himself. And if you've seen Jojo Rabbit earlier this year, I mean, not earlier last year, may I add, because it's 2020 now. I'm still getting used to that. But if you've seen Jojo Rabbit, you know that he is a master when it comes to balancing both tones. And I think he just did such an excellent job with that here. And similar to Deborah Chow, I think Taika Waititi might be a great person to helm a Star Wars property. Like, hell, give him a movie or something. I want to see Taika Waititi do something else Star Wars-related because he did an excellent job here, I thought.
This is probably my favorite thing he's done so far, if I'm being completely honest with you. Just the way that he just like, who was the person that you said, just like,
Deborah Chow.
Just like Deborah Chow, he gets this universe so well. Like, you could just feel that in this episode. You feel that he understands what makes this work in this universe, but it also adds his own spin to it.
Similar to what he did with, like, Thor Ragnarok.
Exactly. Like, he understands this world, but he puts his own spin on it a bit too. And I really enjoyed that. I thought he did a fantastic job. I didn't know he was directing an episode of this series. I actually did not know that going into this. So when I saw his name at the end of the credits, I was like, oh, like, I was like, he directed this, and I was just massive. I was just so impressed with it. He did such a phenomenal job directing this episode. Like, honestly, like, bring him back for season 2 or do something. Like, he just
like a spin-off movie for, like, with him directing. Like, I'd love to see that shit.
Like, he just understands this world perfectly, and I absolutely loved his directing with this episode.
Yeah, and it kind of makes you it kind of makes you wonder, like, where was he when they needed a director for Solo? Where was he when they needed a director for, like, other things? Like, he absolutely could have directed something Star Wars related, because he just fucking gets it so well, and I love what he did here. But I think we've already talked about the writing long enough. I mean, it was just such a solid episode writing-wise. So many great moments for sure. Especially dialogue, I thought was just so great in this episode. But the cinematography in this episode, I thought was on another level. There were so many just gorgeous shots and so many moments that are among not just the shows, but Star Wars best. I mean, especially the moment where all those stormtroopers are infiltrating that hut that they were staying in, and it looks like it's the end. That whole moment, I was so on edge, and I thought they did such a great job with it. I love the cinematography here when they're in, like, that lava, the lava, whatever that was called. I thought that was really great as well. Just so many amazing shots in this episode. And the final shots of Mando and Baby Yoda flying away, giving you that false sense of security that everything's going to be okay. And then top it all off with Moff Gideon being a badass, pulling out that darksaber. I mean, just cinematography was so on point in this episode. There were so many iconic shots, too many to name, honestly, but definitely I think one of the best episodes going on visual-wise for sure. Oh,
for sure. I would agree. Like, just the visual effects, the production design, the cinematography, it was just all perfect. Like, it was just all perfect in this episode, honestly. Some of just the best we've seen in Star Wars in general.
Yeah, and getting into that, we have to talk about fucking Louis Gordon's score as well here, because, look, he's done an excellent job of the whole show, but here...
apparently, he's doing the score for Tenet, apparently. So,
yeah, he is.
So, yeah, I'm hyped to say the least to hear what he's got for that movie.
Especially after this show, he is really shaping himself up to be one of the best composers working today. And I mean, the moment where, like I said, the moment where we get to see his flashbacks and things like that, and then when IG-11 is sacrificing himself, it's one of those scores where I want to buy it instantly. Like, I've heard him score the show all season long, but I thought he went all out in this episode. He really saved the best for last in that way. It finally felt a lot more epic. Like, the whole season's had this very sort of like African sort of feel to it. It's had this very distinct sort of feeling and, you know, Western feel, whereas this episode felt way more epic. It felt like, it felt very much not like John Williams, like epic-wise, but it felt like it
was epic in his own way. It was his own way of presenting an epic Star Wars score.
Yeah, definitely, and it was definitely.
See, and that's the problem with most Star Wars scores. That's my problem with, like, say, Rogue One, for example.
I was about to say Michael Giacchino.
It tries too hard to be John Williams. This is just trying to be its own thing. Like, it's like for a Star Wars theme to be epic, it doesn't have to sound like John Williams.
Yes,
you can make it its own thing, and that's exactly how it's presented here. I think he does an absolutely fantastic job with it.
Yeah, they did a great job with that for sure. Overall, guys, I mean, I think we pretty much got into everything here. So many things to love about this finale. This was just pretty much the, I think, perfect finale in that way. They really went all out in delivering something great here, really saving the best for last. Between IG sacrifice, the amazing moment with Moff Gideon, the backstory the expansion of the backstory we finally get into Mando, finally seeing him without his helmets and things like that. Just so many amazing moments in this episode for sure. This was everything I could have wanted in this episode. And for me, I'm definitely going to give the season finale of The Mandalorian, Season 1, Episode 8, Chapter 8, Redemption, overall in A.
Everything about this episode, in my opinion, was perfect. There's not a single thing I think I didn't like about this episode. It's literally, in my opinion, the perfect season finale. Look, I think the term "saving the best for last" hasn't been more relevant than it is here. It's just a phenomenal episode in every aspect. It's literally the perfect season finale, from the way it handles the character arcs, from the action to the writing, the directing. It's just all perfect in my opinion. And yeah, this is definitely the first episode, and definitely this episode deserves it the most, and is going to get an A+.
All right, guys. So with that, we are done reviewing the finale of The Mandalorian. But if you guys know, and if Double Nine knows, the way I construct reviews of season finales, we don't just review this season finale. We also are going to review the season as a whole, what we liked, what we disliked, all that kind of stuff, what really worked. And then one other thing that Double Nine wanted to do, we'll do at the end of this video. But I'll just get into it right now. I mean, this season for me, I thought was pretty great for the most part. I think that it did a great job, like I said, of further expanding this universe in such a exciting way. And it was able to take the Star Wars IP and do something different with it. It shows that you can do something new with Star Wars. And this was very new. It was far more personal. It was a far more Western type show. It was definitely not nearly as bombastic. I mean, it was towards the end, but for a while, it was a lot more quieter. We could have episodes like episode 4, which were primarily character development episodes. That's stuff we can't have in a regular Star Wars movie. And this shows it's very possible to further expand this universe, and I think they did an excellent job with that this season. I mean, Pedro Pascal, after this episode, I mean, he's always been great, but I think after this episode, he has definitely asserted himself as a bona fide star. He is very much a huge star after, I think, this show, and I love everything that he did with this character, the way that he was able to convey emotion without, you know, any words or things like that. The way he was able to do that without, with having dialogue, but the way he was able to, you know, show emotion without barely having any facial expressions, the way we could always tell where he's coming from, that takes a lot of skill. That takes a lot of effort, and I think Pascal really pulled it off here. Definitely some of his best work to date. Between the other performances, you know, Gina Carano, Carl Weathers, Taika Waititi, Werner Herzog, I mean, you name it. Everyone just did such an excellent job here. Cinematography-wise was great. We also talk about Louis Gordonson's score. My only real flaw with this season, the thing that does bring it down a bit for me, I would say, is that 5th episode. That 5th episode, we both were not a fan of, and it ended up being really inconsequential. It really did not need to be there very much at all. I think I speak for both of us when there was, after that episode, there has not been a mention of it since that episode happened. So that alone tells me that that episode was fairly unnecessary and really just halted the narrative. If it wasn't for that episode, this season would be one of the best shows that I have seen all of last year for sure. But because it does exist, I'm going to knock it down just a bit. But I think moving forward, the show is only just beginning. It's only showing us what it can truly do. I think there's so much more than it can dive into, and I'm so excited to see where the show does go moving forward. So for me, I love the season, and I'm definitely going to give the first season of The Mandalorian overall an A-.
This season was great. I very much enjoyed it for the most part. It is a fantastic season, in my opinion. I really loved how this expands on the lore of Star Wars, being something different than we hadn't seen in the universe beforehand, giving us a much more Western, kind of somewhat of a calmer vibe than usual what we get from a lot of the other Star Wars properties. And I really loved it a lot. This was a great welcomed addition to this fantastic universe, and I loved it. Pedro Pascal was great as Mando / the Mandalorian. I absolutely love his character. He is definitely one of my favorites in the entire universe now. His performance was excellent, and same goes with all the other actors in this series, in this season 2. They were all fantastic. The acting just overall was great. It has such a phenomenal cast. The action was fantastic. The directing, the cinematography, production design, visual effects, you name it. It just looks so beautiful. It's just, this screams Star Wars in the best ways possible. And I just loved everything about this. I do have some of my issues. It does kind of go to a rinse and repeat formula in some areas and stuff like that. And, there's things that they can improve upon, but for the most part, I generally enjoyed this series. I think it is a great season, and I'm only, more excited to see where they can go next. So I'm also going to give season 1 an A-.
All right, so still, guys, even though we reviewed both the finale and the season, we're not done yet because there was one other little thing that Film Fan wanted us to do. So because you came up with the idea, I guess why don't you just tell us what we're going to be doing at the end here?
All right, so since this season only had 8 episodes, I figured Kevin and I would rank all the episodes from worst to best. So this is going to be a very interesting ranking. I am very interested to see what he's going to have as his worst and his in between all that and his favorite. So I'll let you go first. So what do you have, sir?
All right, so I'm gonna pull up the graphic right here because I'm tech savvy in that way. But yeah, so we'll get into it right now. So number 8, I think it's pretty obvious. Episode 5. It's the only episode that did absolutely nothing for me. It felt incredibly inconsequential. Most of the characters I just did not give a shit about. And like I said, especially considering that I think that episode was pretty much pointless and wasn't brought up at all since it aired. It definitely felt a lot. It definitely felt the most inessential of the entire show. It's the only episode of the show that I simply do not like really at all. So yeah, definitely the weakest episode for me. Number 7, you might disagree with me on this, but I put episode 1 there. And the reason I put episode 1 there is because while I think it is a very solid episode of the show, I do think that it was a bit of a rocky start at first. There's still that, we can't forget that amazing, blue character that got, killed in the first, 20 minutes, but he still was very aggravating. There were some things that just didn't stick out as well to me. And for me personally, I just felt that Dave Filoni really did have a rough time with directing this show. It felt a little bit like he was still settling into it. And definitely of all the directors we had this season, he was for sure the weakest. Both of his episodes, one good, one very mediocre, just didn't stick out as much as the others to me. We still had some amazing moments for sure, like all the stuff with the clients and things like that. And the initial reveal of Baby Yoda was fantastic. But that was the first episode. I was still still sailing into the show and things like that. So I put episode 1 there. Number 6, I have episode 2, an episode that this is where I know you and I are going to disagree. I really like this episode quite a bit. I thought it was a nice, slow, character-moving episode that, especially in hindsight, I think did a really good job of showing the relation between Kuiil and Mando, especially knowing what happens to Kuiil and why Kuiil is so important in that way, but also seeing Mando starting to realize the beginnings of what Baby Yoda is capable of, the way he can protect him and things like that. So I definitely put episode 2 at number 6. Number 5, I put episode 6 there. Pretty much now we're getting into the really great episodes of the show. This was such a fun heist mission, but then of course it turned into something far more insane when everyone ended up turning on him and things like that. It just really showed how it basically did what I wanted episode 5 to do. Episode 5 kind of toyed with this notion that you have someone that is so jealous of what Mando is doing. And that he wants to overthrow him in that way. And here you have someone who, you know, he's known Mando all his life, but Mando is starting to shift and he's acting a lot differently, and he doesn't understand why he is doing the things that he's doing. And so he feels that he needs to be, you know, he needs to be dispensed mainly because of that. And I thought that whole episode was so intense. There were so many great moments there. I was so on edge throughout it. And it was one of those episodes where even though you knew that Mando was going to eventually get out of it, you were fearing for him as a character. And I think they did an excellent job with that there. Definitely one of my favorites of the season. Episode 4 is actually episode 4. Yeah, episode 4, I love this one. I thought Gina Carano's Cara Dunn was such a great addition to the cast. I loved what she ended up doing here, and really one of those characters that went through a pretty big arc, because, you know, she started off wanting to be independent, and then by the end of the season, she really has this new group and things like that, and she's starting to find her calling more. And I thought that she was just such a great addition. So many great action moments in this episode, and gave you that false sense of security that maybe things can work out for Mando. You can see that he wants to settle down. He's starting to form this bond with the child and things like that. And it was just such a great episode in the way. Such a great character episode. So definitely episode 4 is there. Episode 3 for a while was the peak of this show for me. I mean, I remember we were just raving about it when it first came out, and it took me forever to finally watch it. I know out of all the reviews we did, that was the one you were like most eager to get out as soon as possible, besides this one, of course. But episode 3 is definitely my number 3 for sure. I love this episode. I loved that we got to see Mando having to make this choice of like, do I want to stay loyal to my cause, or do I feel so bad for the child, and am I starting to care so much for him that I actually want to deviate from what I'm supposed to do? It's a great inner conflict that I think the whole show really did a great job with, the central message of not doing what you're supposed to do, doing what you think is best for you to do, and you know, going against the grain of those that are trying to control you. It's a great message of, you know, the problems of conformity and things like that. And, you know, since Star Wars has always been about relating to the politics of today, I thought they did a really great job with that in this episode. Definitely one of my favorites. And oh my God, those last 20 minutes, just so many just great moments in there for sure. More epic than the entire climax of Rise of Skywalker. So I'd say it's a pretty big victory in my book for sure. For number 2, I have episode 7. This was really just when everything was starting to come together. I had a fear for a while that the show was going to be nothing than just Mando and Baby Yoda going from place to place. This episode very much, you know, ended that worry for sure. It definitely lessened my worries about that because it showed what we have been building to. We got to see a lot of character growth here, especially from Grief Karga. Still one of my favorite moments in the entire season. I love what Carl Weathers did here. The reveal of Moff Gideon at the end, and then Queel's sacrifice. Oh my God, just so many amazing moments within this episode. Definitely episode 2. And then this one, I think we can universally agree on. Number 1 is absolutely this episode. I think, you know, we talk about it enough. They went all out here, really delivered the most satisfying finale possible. So many amazing moments here. And definitely for me, just the perfect way to end a really, really great season of television. So that is my personal ranking.
Okay, I don't have a fancy fucking graph board like Kevin does. Maybe he'll edit something. I don't know.
You know what? I'll do that right now as you're talking. So
okay. Well, here we go.
Yeah.
So here we go. In last place, I have is episode 5. Yes, I agree with Kevin. This is by far the worst episode of the season. It's not very good. It's almost unbearable to watch, in my opinion. It just doesn't, and when you go later into the season, it just serves no purpose. It really doesn't. Like, it doesn't get brought up at all. It just, nothing consequential comes from it. Like, I just felt it was the definition of a filler episode, and I was really, really bored watching it. I really didn't like the one character that felt like he was like a Nathan Drake ripoff.
Oh my
I didn't
God,
enjoy him at all.
Character.
he just was not good at all. It's just not a good episode. It's almost unbearable to watch, in my opinion. It's by far the worst episode of this entire season. All right, next up I have in 7th place, is episode 2. I don't care about this episode. This episode is mediocre, in my opinion. It's kind of boring. I really there is some great stuff in it. Unlike episode 5, there is some great stuff in it. I do like seeing, Mando and Quill. I do think that stuff is great. But just the whole story of him getting the ship parts and stuff like that from, the Jawas and stuff, it just didn't interest me as much. I just felt like it was kind of boring. I just wasn't as into it as I wanted it to be. And I just, especially going off from the first episode to going to this, it just kind of was okay. Not a terrible episode, but it's definitely one of the weaker ones. All right, in 6th place, the pilot episode, the first episode. I really like this episode a lot. I think it starts things off on the right foot. Mm-hmm. It does have a little bit of a rocky start at first, but once things keep on going, it gets a lot better. I really enjoyed it a lot, especially those last few minutes with that awesome-ass action scene. Fantastic stuff. But the episode overall is really good. I do think it starts the universe up really well. It gets you into the world of the Mandalorian, shows you what you are about to expect from this new world in Star Wars, and I really enjoyed it a lot. It was a nice introduction to, Mando, Greef Karga, the client, and of course, Baby Yoda. It was just a great introduction.
Your son.
My son. It was just a great introduction to this world. I really enjoyed it a lot. All right, next up, number 5, episode 6. I really enjoyed this a lot. It was a very, very big step up from the last episode, and I enjoyed this a lot. It was a fun heist episode. It was heat in space, and it was great, and I enjoyed it. I really liked the team that was along with him. It was just an overall enjoyable episode. Had some fun action. It actually had some good suspense to it too, because Mando is gonna get out of this situation, but there were times where you were like, I don't know, man, this is kind of tough, and it was really great. It was really good stuff, in my opinion. I really enjoyed this episode a lot, and it was really fun. Honestly, it was, like I said, it was a nice, heat episode in space. Honestly, I really enjoyed it a lot. So yeah, that is my number 5. My number 4, actually, Kevin's got it wrong. My number 4 is actually episode 7.
Oh. Okay.
Yes, you actually got it wrong. My number 4 is actually episode 7. But he was like, I know this boy. I know this boy. I know where he's gonna place things. I just swerved your ass.
Wow. Okay.
But no. Episode 7 really. This is the episode where everything is starting to come together. We're starting to see everything come to its full glory. I really thought that was great. Honestly, there's some really fantastic moments in this. Like you said, the stuff with Greef Karga, that was great. I love that moment a lot. I thought that moment was fantastic, and just a nice redemption arc for him, and realizing, this is way more important than I thought it was. When he gets healed by Baby Yoda, he realizes, that I understand why he's fighting for this thing. He understands. I think that stuff is so great. I really enjoyed that a lot. And of course, that whole ending with that big action sequence, and everyone's just getting taken out. And Quill's trying to Quill is trying.
Not Peter Quill. This is not Star-Lord.
I know. I'm sorry. I always get the two confused because they literally sound like the same exact name. But I really enjoyed that too. His sacrifice. He tries to save Baby Yoda, but it's just not enough. But it's just so many great moments, and then, of course, the reveal of Moff Gideon. Fantastic stuff. So great in my opinion. I love this episode a ton. Next up, now here's probably the surprise of this entire list. My number 3 is episode 4. Actually, I've seen a lot of people, I've even seen a lot of people say that this is the worst episode of the season, which I don't get. I thought this was by far the most underrated episode of the whole season. this episode was so great. I loved where we got to with this planet. I loved seeing this village of people that, you know, are just trying to live their lives, but these scavengers are like taking, or like trying to take their stuff. Like, I enjoyed seeing that. And I really loved the bond that Mando had with, I forgot the character's name, but the woman that was there. Not Cara.
Oh, yeah, the other woman.
The other one. I actually really enjoyed that a lot. It was a nice interaction. It was the first time he was feeling intimate with someone.
But Double Nine, the entire episode is a ripoff of Seven Samurai.
But I really enjoyed seeing that a lot. Like, I liked seeing that. Like, Mando is trying to be intimate with someone, but he knows he can't because he's got a mission. He's got a purpose to do so. But he's even conflicted at points. Like, he's like, do I want to live this life? Like, and I like seeing that a lot, honestly. I thought that was handled well. And of course, his chemistry with Cara is great. I love the two of them in this episode. They just have great banter with each other. The stuff with Baby Yoda is fantastic. Sipping the soup. And then, of course, that whole action sequence where they're trying to take out the ATR. I sometimes the ATR.
Wow, what a fan of Star Wars we got here.
Look, I forget one fucking battle fucking spaceship's name. Okay, so shut up. Anyways, but I thought that was great. I really enjoyed that a lot. It was just epic and grand and really intense as well. It's a great episode. I really don't get a lot of the, guess I could say, hate it gets. It's such a fantastic episode. I really enjoyed that a lot. It was by far one of my favorites in the entire season. All right, number 2, my runner-up for this season is episode 3. Taken in space. That's exactly what this is. I loved it. This was exactly the moment where Mando realized, oh, maybe do I, try to keep on going with my cause, or do I help out this child? And when he comes to that realization, I need to help out this child, it is fantastic. And he is just taking out stormtroopers left and right, taking out anyone that is in his sight. And it is fantastic. And it's just so emotional, too, because it's like you can tell that Mando, for the first time, really cares about something. Yes. I really like seeing that a lot. And, and that whole just finale where all the other Mandalorians come in to help him out. It was fantastic. It was such an action-heavy episode, but what really got me was a lot of the much more character stuff in that episode, and seeing Mando kind of change his ways I really like seeing that a lot, and it's a really fantastic episode. For the longest time, this, in my opinion, was the peak of this entire show until the finale. By far, we've already talked about what we need to talk about with this episode, but by far the best episode of this entire season, in my opinion. I loved it. It was everything the season finale had to be. And it just makes me even more excited to see where season 2 goes. And I absolutely loved it.
All right, so you heard it first, guys. That is our rankings for the season of The Mandalorian. And with that, guys, we are finally done here. We have reviewed the finale. We've reviewed the season, and we have given you our rankings of the show overall. I think it's safe to say we've pretty much covered the show in the most thorough way possible. Before we do go one last time, I am going to give Double Nine, who is allegedly a big Star Wars fan, although there are some things in this review that he stumbled on. So I'm questioning if he actually is as big as a fan as he says. What do you want to say before we finally wrap things up here?
Well, thank you once again, Kevin, for having me on for another episode review. Thank you for having me on for reviewing all these episodes. I very much appreciate it.
Of course, I couldn't do a review of the show without you, to be honest. Like I don't think this would be. I don't think I'd be as good without you. We have a good. You were what would we say? You're my compadre.
Yeah, the compadre. Yes. Yes. But no, seriously, I appreciate the fact that you thought of me when you want someone to come on to talk about this show with, and I appreciate it. It was fun to talk about all these episodes and review them all with you. So I very much appreciate you having me on for this. I cannot wait to review the entirety of season 2 when that comes around.
Yes.
All right. So
And I'm glad you were here to review the only Star Wars property of last year, the only Star Wars thing that came out last year. That's it. There was nothing else. But either way, guys, that is it for our review.
Also, you can find me on my YouTube channel, FilmFan0599. What?
They already know that.
But, well, and also you can find me on my Letterboxd, which I do more reviews on anyway, so which is WWE-Fan0599, because Letterboxd won't let me change my username. So, yeah, thank you, and thank you again, Kevin, for having me on. So we'll see you all later. Goodbye.
Yeah, and Mandalorian is actually...
And may the Force be with you.
Yes, yes, and Mandalorian's actually on Letterboxd for some reason, even though it's a TV series, but whatever. Either way, guys, we thank you for watching our reviews for the entire season. It's been a lot of fun for sure. Again, I very much apologize for getting this out as late as it was, but hopefully you guys rolled with the punches and still really did. Hopefully this review was worth the wait. I personally think that it very much was, considering that we gave you guys more than you were expecting overall. But that's it for this video, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Let us know what you guys thought of this finale overall. Left your thoughts, and we'll see you guys in what do you guys is going to happen in episode in season 2, all that kind of stuff. We'll see you guys in our next video, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.
Bye.
Oh my God, every
one last time.